Matthijs will talk about the research we did. We started in September, the State of Design Systems in the Netherlands, 2019. It's the second year in a row we're doing this research, so I'm really curious to see what the differences are and what we learned this year. So give it up for Matthijs.
Thank you, Esther. So maybe the first things, I saw a lot of, last couple of people join in. So this is first talk, and there is more pizza on the way. So also good news. And hopefully with that good news, we can get started on the talk. So this, I think Esther already mentioned. Welcome everybody, my name is Matthijs. I work at Angi Studio. We're a design agency and we specialize in design systems. And well, today for the talk, I'm assuming you have an idea what a design system is. And if you don't, it will all become clear during the talks and also during the talks of ANWB and Coolblue. Today we're going to share the results of our survey. I was just curious, who filled in our survey? Maybe raise a hand. Okay, that's about half the room. So you'll be the first people to get email. And you'll get a report. We promise you, the guys that and girls that filled in the survey first, will get the report first, and everybody else can download it on our website starting next week. That report contains all the results, and today I'll just share the highlights. That's not all that we shared with you guys. We promised there would be cake, and we sent those out. 5 participants randomly selected got a cake. We promised it was not a lie, and it actually happened. The cake was there. So, what are we going to talk about today? Is the State of Design Systems 2019. Is because when you start with your design system and you look around worldwide, you see all these really cool design systems. You see Polaris, IBM's Carbon, maybe Google Material, and you think, wow, why doesn't my design system look like that? That is, of course, not a fair comparison because those are huge global companies. So what we want to do with our State of Design Systems is to show you what is the State of Design Systems in the Netherlands. So all of our participants are working in the Netherlands. Everybody that filled in the survey works in a Dutch company. So you can compare yourself now with these results. How am I doing? You know, how am I doing with my design system? So my talk is in 4 parts. First, I'll tell you a little bit about who were these people that participated, where do they work, etc. And then I'll share some overall results, like tooling and what are the kind of things that you put in your design systems. I've got a very interesting thing called surviving the first year, because we see some differences between having a design system for less than a year or more than a year. And then I have some tips. If you have any questions, just write them down. I'd love to go over them with a beer later on. Of course, we have the Q&A where we can go deep into your questions as well. So, who participated? We're very lucky with these numbers. We're very happy with the response. Most of them were designers. And we also had some developers and people working as a product owner or in management. And there was also a very nice distribution of the type of people that participated. Around half of them work in-house, so they work at an organization, and the other half either worked in an agency or is working freelance. So for the rest of the talk today, we'll focus on the people in-house, participants from in-house teams. But I just want to give you like a brief overview of what those other participants said. What are the differences? So looking at people working in-house versus not working in-house, we see that participants, freelancers, working in agencies, generally have a lot more experience. They've more of them say they've worked with design systems for over 2 years, and 1 in 5 has made more than 5 design systems already. But we also see there are some other differences. People working in a house have more experience with code in design systems, and also content, so things like content guidelines and content blocks. And another thing is that the tooling is a little bit different. It seems like we're all addicted to Sketch, because either in-house or agency and freelance is 60% work on Sketch in-house teams, but for agencies that's 70%, 71%. And also they're working a lot more with abstract as a tooling. So it seems to be a little bit more focused on design tooling, whereas participants in-house have a little bit more experience also with design system specific tooling. Things like Storybook and Zero Height are mentioned here a lot more. And another thing, Figma apparently is used more in-house than for design agencies or for freelancers. And another thing, last thing that I wanted to share with about the difference between in-house and freelance or agencies is we asked them also what are the kind of struggles that you see people have with design systems. And we see that agency and freelance participants focus a lot more on content in the design system. It's not complete or etc. And a lot more on tooling, whereas in-house teams have a lot more struggles with process and people. Things like maybe adoption or staffing. Okay, so like I said, today it will be sharing results from in-house teams. And also there we saw a very cool split. So we saw that we had a couple of really big names. Of course, people from Coolblue filled in the survey in Angi Bay. That's also why they're here. But we had KPN, TomTom, Philips participants as well, and several of the big insurance companies. But it was a nice split because we also had some organizations with less than 500 people, and also a quarter of the people worked in organizations with less than 100 people. So it's a really nice mix. And of course there are some differences, whether you're a big organization or a small one. That makes sense. Big organizations, 70% say they have a design system older than a year. And that makes sense also because they have more capacity in-house. 86% say they have a team of designers, or they have designers working in product teams. They have multiple designers in their agency, or in their company. I mean. And for smaller companies, there actually almost half of them have either one or no designer working there. And yeah, of course, if you have more people, then also you have more stuff in there in your design system. It just contains more. There are also a lot of similarities because we asked them what are the struggles that you have with your design system, and they have the same struggles. We see the exact same patterns there, and I'll get back into that later. So some more overall results, or let's delve into the overall results now. Tooling is one of the things when companies approach us for design system work, they are always very keen on talking about tooling. So what do we see? Really, a lot of people, in-house teams working with Sketch. It's a design tool. Also, a lot of people, especially starting this year, have started working with Storybook, 1 in 3. And then Figma is also a design tool. Storybook is a tool where you can put code components and share them. And you can do a lot more with Storybook, by the way. So anyway, like I said, we saw a lot of changes also because we did it last year as well. So we saw that really huge entrance from Storybook, from almost nobody last year in 2018 up to 36%. That's huge. Also, Figma was mentioned last year as there was one participant said, I think it's a good tool to try out maybe. And that went to 23% of people actually saying they use it for their design systems. And then, yeah, the same Zero Height is also a tool specifically for design systems, and it can link code and design together, and you can add documentation there as well. Wasn't mentioned last year. Now 1 in 10 is using it. And what we see is that actually the conclusion that we are drawing is that design system specific tooling is really growing up, because we see less people are making homegrown solutions. And I think that's because they're transitioning more to Zero Height Storybook combinations. And yeah, that our tooling is it's growing up. It's becoming a real thing. Interestingly, Envision DSM dropped, and I don't know why that is. Maybe if anybody has an idea, we can talk about it later. Some special mentions. We had an other category people could fill in things. People mentioned Vue Style Guidist a lot, and Confluence for documentation. And there was one person that mentioned using PowerPoint to maintain the design system. I don't know if that person is here tonight. And I'm really curious. If you are here, just let me know, and we can talk about it. 1 in 10 used Frontify, and I'm singling them out because Frontify is in the house today. We'll have a talk at the end of the night from Frontify. You can ask them a lot of questions. I think probably you guys want that number to go up, right? From 10% high to much, much more, right? And they can tell you, maybe you can convince them later on tonight. So we can compare to last year, but we can also compare to the worldwide average, because there was a design system survey done by Sparkbox, and looking at the differences, we see Storybook is a tool that we kind of can agree on for the Netherlands versus the world, but there are some major differences here. InVision mentioned here a lot globally, and Pattern Lab, for us, it dropped. It's also a tool for front-end developers mainly. And worldwide, it's still used a lot. In the Netherlands, it drops from last year. And the tool that we're all addicted to, Sketch, was not mentioned that much at all. So I don't know what happened there. One explanation that I have is that the survey was maybe filled in more by developers than designers, but still, there's a huge difference. So that's about tooling. If you want to know more, the report is coming next week, and you can go crazy. Load more details about tooling. So that's how we make it, but what's in it? I think this will come as no surprise. Color, typography, and 9 out of 10 is adding form components, things like form fields, buttons, etc. And also another mention is, mentioned a lot, was icons. They're in there as well. In the other category, we didn't have an option that people could choose, but they've just mentioned it a lot, saying, oh yeah, we also have icons in there. Yeah, I won't mention everything that's on the slide. You can see it yourself. And of course, you'll get the report where you can see the whole list as well. What we saw is that large organizations, they generally tend to have the same pattern as smaller organizations. It's just they have more of everything. And it's especially true for things like usage guidelines and design principles, and also code. So those are the 3 things that really make a difference between having a big organization or a small one. Also here, some growth and some stagnation. We apparently have been really busy since 2018 adding UI patterns. That went up a lot. It went from 47% to 66%. Also, we've been adding things specifically about our design system, things like process, how to get new components in there, or update current components. We also added things about our design system. We wrote things about our design system team in there. These are the big climbers. But something happened with our branding guidelines. I don't know, maybe we've just been so busy adding design system team members to in our documentation we forgot about branding guidelines, or maybe we decided we didn't want them in our design systems. I'm just curious. I don't have an explanation for this, so if you do, we can talk later over a beer. Also, layout systems dropped since last year. Branding made a huge dive. It went from half of the people mentioning it was in design systems last year to 38% now, which is also strange if you look to the global results, because globally, a lot of people put branding guidelines in their design system. Compared globally, we just have less of everything in their design systems. But especially accessibility guidelines and code. This is the number for JavaScript code, but also other code like HTML and CSS. We just have less of it. Less people report that they have it in their design system. Also content guidelines. We don't have it that much. So, but maybe you're looking at this and you see all these amazing numbers and you see all these tooling and you think, but Matthijs, I'm still working on my design system. And I just want to say you're doing fine, okay? Don't panic, it's okay. Because most people are still working on their design system. And this number actually went up from last year, so more people are working on their design system now than last year, and I've looked at specific people that filled it in, and there are people that updated it. Last year they said, yes, I have a design system, and now they say, I'm working on it. So I guess you learned the lesson, you're never done with your design system. There were some people who did not have one, it's 1 in 10. Mainly they mention budget constraints or no design or Java front-end skills. So 1 in 50% mentioned they don't have a design system because of budget. Also, some people said they weren't sure if they had a design system, and these two categories I filtered out of the rest of the analysis. So you're never done. And even if you have been working on it for a while, I've asked if you look at, for instance, people who worked on it for 2 or more years, they also say, we're still working on it. So that if you look at this, you see most people are in the category of actually having a design system less than a year. A lot of people have just started with it. And so I think it is a nice split to see, though, because it's 43% is in the 1+ year category. And that's also why we gave you guys a special sticker. So maybe a raise of hands who worked more than their design system more than a year? Okay, that is also kind of half again. That really represents this graph, I think. So I think it's cool for people to talk. If you had a design system less than a year or more than a year, it's nice to talk a bit with each other. So those people less than a year, what are you up for? We asked them, how was the process of getting to a design system? People mentioned it was a bumpy ride. It was a long process. It was chaotic. It was an adventure. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. You might experience problems. Things like team maturity. 1 in 3 out of participants said they had that problem. Staffing. 40% of people mentioned staffing problems. Maintenance, also 40%. And the big thing is adoption. 45% of people mention adoption as being a problem. And the same problems, large organizations, small organizations, doesn't matter. Everybody experiences this problem in the same amounts. And this is very similar to the global struggles people have. Except team maturity is much more a problem in the Netherlands than globally, and I don't know why. But as you can see, most of these are people problems. When people come to us for a design system, they talk about tooling, and they say funding is a problem, or they're expecting things with process. But all of this is mainly people, so be sure you involve the right people. Only 1 in 10 says funding is a problem. In tooling, only 4% say that tooling is a problem, is a struggle for their design system. So maybe don't worry about tooling so much. So if you're experiencing these problems, what we want to say is just hang in there, just keep going, because if you last more than a year, everything will be better. It's an investment. After a year, more people say that their design system is successful. Almost 90% of people have a design system more than a year say their design system is successful. And they mention things like consistency and speed of development. There's more. There's just more in your design system. If you have it more than a year, you're in the purple bar. So more of everything, especially components, grid system, and also a lot more about process, onboarding, design system team, design system specific documentation, guidelines, standards, everything. You have last more than a year. That's what we want to say. After a year, you rate yourself higher in maturity. So there's a maturity index for your design system. Stage 1, you don't have it. 2, PDF or a wiki. And 3, you have a UI kit and code examples. You're going nice. And then stage 4, this all goes automatically into production code, website code. Stage 5, it really is part of your organization. So you see, if you're less than a year, only 1 in 4 says they're in stage 1 in 4 say they're in stage 1 or 2. But if you look at more than a year, look, everybody is stage 3+. So And a lot of people are actually in stage 5, where your design system really is part of your organization. It takes time. Daily usage goes up. People having a design system more than a year say they use it every day, 70% of people. And more people say they have code in production. So the code that you have in your design system, whether it goes into your website or your app, a lot of people who have a design system less than a year say nothing goes in there. More than a year, even 75% plus is really big. So, and those problems that I mentioned earlier, yeah, those are still there. But they are different. So what we see, if you have less than a year, you're having more problems with adoption and funding. Whereas, and this makes sense, right? If you have a design system more than a year, you have more problems with maintenance and staffing. You have this amazing design system, you need to maintain it, you need more people for that. So the problems are different. It's just, yeah. What I did want to say for people who are experiencing problems with funding, this is an interesting thing that I found. And when we ask people about the benefits for your design system, designers mainly mention UI consistency, efficiency increase, code reusability, maintaining brands, and things that product owners and managers also talk about, but they really value brand standards more than what designers mention. So maybe you didn't think about that when you're asking for funding. Of course, UX UI consistency is very important, code reusability, very important, efficiency increase, very important, but this branding standards might be a good argument for convincing management. So I want to finish with 5 tips to maybe take you beyond your first year. We asked everybody in the survey, what is the best tip you can give people who are working on a design system? So this was an open text field. 1 in 3 mentioned start small, which is a huge number for an open text field. So that's basically the best tip. 1 in 5 says just do it, so just start. Don't overthink it. But there were also a couple of people really that mentioned do your research and focus on user needs. So don't just randomly start with a design system. Make sure you start at a good starting point. And I'd just like to ask to add, stay small, because we saw once you have a design system, maintenance and staffing becoming a big problem. So don't grow too big. Keep it lean. Second tip, I have 5. So communication is key. What do people mean with that? They say things like talk about it, have a good story for your design system, and mention that it's a growing thing, that it's not a project that is going to be done within a month or 2. Involve others early was mentioned also by 1 in 5. And I would just want to add, be smart who you involve, because we've asked you guys in the survey who is mainly maintaining and using your design system. 80 to 90% is design and front end, so those definitely involve those early. But only 30% mentioned back end and product owners, and only 15% mentioned copywriters, marketers actually using or maintaining their design system. So this might be very different for your organization. You know, maybe in your organization you really want to involve copywriter because that is the important part of your product. So be very smart who you involve. Yeah, if you want to add video to your design system, add people working with video, for instance. Just get the right people on board. You cannot do it alone. We asked people, what are you using mainly in your daily life? People said, I use typography and color and grid. And some other people said they use components. So make sure your design system supports both. People that want to build, so give people a steering wheel and a car. And lastly, my last tip, it's okay to ask for help. Sometimes it may look like you have to do it all by yourself, but 1 in 4 says they've asked for external help. People working in house teams said they had external help, and those things are usually things like extra design capacity and knowledge specifically about design systems. So I think this is also a great opportunity since you're here and so many people have worked with design systems and everybody has experience with it, right? To really take this time and use the breaks to talk to each other and exchange some experiences, ask some questions about tooling, etc. And to help you guys with that a bit as well, we give away 30-minute consults with either me or Maurice. We're the design system leads at Angi Studio. In your gift bag, you can find a code for a 30-minute consult. So it's a free consult, and we're really looking forward to you using that. Also, we are having the blue stickers, so if you have any questions, you can also just ask us immediately. The blue stickers are us, Angi Studio, the people that organized the evening. And with that, that was my last slide. So I would really like to thank you. I hope you learned something today. And yeah, thank you. And the Q&A, you can ask all the questions also in the break later on. I just have one small tiny thing. If you really like design systems and you're a front-ender, or you really like React, coding in React, or you just like coding in general, we have a competition and you can win €1,000 if you join Angi Studio based on the competition. So if you know anybody who's looking for a job or you are looking for a new opportunity, angistudio.com/frontendwedstrijd.
Well, thank you so much, Matthijs.